welcome to Downen Scaled Replicas. Now that we're offering a line of decals, I just want to walk you through application of some of those decals and point out a few of the characteristics of the decals that we do print, just to make sure that your application of those decals will be as smooth and successful as it can possibly be. So what I've got right here is I do have a set of decals that I have printed for a Battlestar Galactica garage kit called the Nova class Battlestar. It's a very large kit. You can see that these are the landing bays or landing pods right here. They're very large. And I have a set of decals now that will put the runway markings on those landing bays. So I wanted to walk through the ones that I haven't applied yet and just show you how I would do that. These are printed on water slide decal paper, and they are printed using a laser printer. Now this laser printer is capable of printing in white as well. It's very expensive to print in white, so I try to reserve that only for those things that absolutely can't be done any other way. In this case, what I'm going to show you is a set of decals where in some cases there might be some areas that ideally would be in white, like these letters or numbers right here, but where actually we don't necessarily need to print those in white, because what we can do, as you see here, is spray paint in a very light gray color, light ghost gray, for example, or maybe even an insignia white, which is really more of an off gray than it is a white. And you can see then, if I can get those in frame there, that using that very light gray color, they still stand out really well. Now another way to approach that might be just to go ahead and paint a little white area there underneath where that black part of the decal is going to be, and then the white would show through where that decal is clear, where the 10 and the 9 are located. You can do it either way, but at least in this case, just because the white is a little bit more difficult to print, difficult to get perfectly lined up exactly where you want it to be, and then it is more expensive. In this case, at least, I've just printed these decals clear, and it tends to work out okay if you're using that very light gray color. These are printed without an overcoat on the decals, because I find if I put any kind of an overcoat, whether it's a spray or whether it's a brush-on clear, it tends to make the decals very thick, and it even will sometimes make the decals more difficult to work with. So I tend to leave them uncoated, so this is just the toner that's on top of the paper. Now that toner can be scratched, so you do want to be careful as you handle these decals, but they're not super delicate. You can still be reasonable as you handle them. You can see it doesn't wipe off or anything like that, but if I were to rub my fingernail across there, you'd rub that toner off. So it's entirely up to you. Before you work with the decals, if you do want to coat them with a clear, you should be able to do that. Either lightly brush on a clear coat of an acrylic like Future floor polish. I think it's Johnson's floor polish now or something like that. It seems like the name changes every few years. Or you could use a liquid decal film such as that's available from Microscale, for example. My experience personally has been very poor with the Testors liquid decal film or decal clear coat, whatever they call that. And you definitely don't want to use anything that's not an acrylic on top of these, because it will absolutely melt the clear layer that's on top of the decal paper here. So if you do a lacquer, I've never had luck spraying over these with a clear lacquer. I've not tried a clear enamel, but frankly I'm not really aware of too many clear enamels anyway. So I would either stick to the Future, which is an acrylic, or something like that Microscale liquid decal film. Personally, I don't use either. I just work with them as they are. There's a continuous clear layer right underneath where the printer has printed, and for that reason, these aren't like decals that you're going to find in one of the mass-produced kits, like from Revell or Monogram, whatever it may have to be, Tamiya. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to cut around the decal relatively close to where the printing is, otherwise you'll get the clear carrier film all around there. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut around these right here. I have a very sharp pair of scissors here, and the only thing I use these scissors for is to cut decals. I don't cut anything else with these scissors. You can cut these with a hobby knife if you just want to use an X-Acto knife, but I find that that tends to raise the edge of that clear decal film for some reason, and then that edge is far more visible. It's like a ridge once you get that decal down on the paper. So I will use a hobby knife in areas where I just can't get in otherwise because it's just too small to work around. But if I possibly can, I use the scissors because they don't leave that ridge that I tend to find is left when I use the X-Acto knife. So let's go ahead and start trimming these out. I think I'm going to work first on these long decal strips that are here in the center. So I'll show you how I work this. You saw how I cut those. They were close to the printing, but they weren't just right up against it. I'm just trying to minimize the amount of carrier film that is going to be on there, and therefore the possibility of any silvering around where that carrier film is. Silvering happens when you get air bubbles trapped underneath the clear film, and so when the light reflects off of it in a certain way, you can see silvering down there. It appears silver because of those air bubbles trapped underneath it. So I'm just trying to minimize that, but I'm not cutting up just right against the print unless I need to get really close here because that's going to be like right at the edge of the landing base. So I've zoomed in a little bit here. I'm going to pull a little bit of a bait and switch on you. I'm going to start out with something like really easy here first. Here are some very small Battlestar Galactica ship decals here. This is for an aftermarket kit called the Talos, and I have an upgrade set for it, a refit set for it. So here's the first one that I just did. So let me just walk you through some of the principles first, and then we'll hit that Nova class landing bay, because that's a little bit more complicated. So here's the decal. You can see, of course, I've cut it out, just like I did with the other decals. I've got my bowl of warm water here. It's warm, it's not hot, it's not boiling, but it's just warm, and to me that helps the water penetrate the decal paper a little bit better. Now I'm just going to hold it in there for a couple, 3, 4, 5 seconds, something like that. I'm not going to hold it in there so long that the decal begins to float off. And I'm just going to set it off to the side for a moment. I'm going to do one more here while I'm at it, just while I'm waiting for that one to completely soak in there. You can see this decal paper. I really do like this decal paper. It's from Micromark. It doesn't curl up like so much decal paper does, and it has pretty good behaviors all in all. If this were not a completely flat surface, if I had some texture to it, what I might do is I might put down some decal set, for example micro set from Microsol, before I got started. But in this case, since this is so flat here, I'm just going to go ahead and directly apply that. Okay, so let's get everything wet. Wet, wet, wet really is the key here. So get some good bubbles of water on there. Gotta make sure my fingers are wet. I have a good pair of tweezers here that I'm going to grip an edge where there is no toner. It's just the clear paper there, how I'm gripping that edge. You can see that. Okay. Alright, just one quick dip again to make sure there's plenty of water on the back of that decal paper. I'm going to set it about where it needs to go. With wet fingers, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to double check and make sure that decal is willing to move around on the paper. Yep, it's willing to move. Just little micro movements there. Okay, so now I'm going to get it positioned almost to where it needs to be, but then I'm going to begin with my finger to just slide it off, and then I'm going to stop moving the decal with my finger, and I'm just going to start pulling with the tweezers here very gently. If it doesn't want to come, I don't want to force it because I could tear the decal. There we go. Okay, if it's been sitting there long enough, it should be loose from the paper. And I'm just going to pull that paper out from underneath it in a nice smooth motion here to prevent wrinkles, to prevent it from rolling up. There we go. Now this is a really easy one to start with here. Again, wet fingers. Move it around just to position it exactly where I want it to be. It's not quite centered exactly where I want it. Make sure it's nice and straight on there, and that's just about where I want that guy to be. If he resists moving around, just get in there with a wet finger. If you absolutely have to, I always keep a paintbrush, an old paintbrush nearby. Dip that in the water, get those bristles nice and wet, and you can move it around with that. And you can get up underneath it, get some water underneath it if it just is stubborn and refuses to move. Okay, so now that guy is just about... I'm so mad the memory card filled up just as I was finishing that off. So let me just pick up from where I was, but with the other one that I've got here a little bit larger. Let's just slide this guy off of here again real quick. Wet fingers everywhere, because I just wanted to show you how I blot it down. Is he ready to move? He is ready to move. He acts like he's a little loose there. Slide him off just a little bit so that I can yank him this way, get him started, and then pull with the tweezers. There we go. Alright. Make sure there's not too much resistance there. If it's a really long decal, and we'll show you those in just a moment here with the other landing bays, I want to move my finger forward occasionally because I don't want to put too much stress on that decal. You can take a lot. These guys are fairly robust, but you know what? Let's give them all the chances that we can here. Okay, lots of water. This guy's going to take just a little bit more positioning here, and he is just about where I want him to be. You know what? And I've got the canopy here. Let me just triple check that once I have that canopy on there, yeah, that looks like that's going to be just about where I want him. Okay, this is where the memory card died last time, right? Okay. I keep a soft cotton cloth with me here, something that's absorbent. And what you're going to see here is there's a lot of water on the surface. Right in the middle, I'm just going to gently press down to kind of fix where I want that decal to be, and I'm going to roll. Alright, so that has rolled the water out from underneath that part of the decal. Now I'm going to move again and roll, and I'm going to move a little further on down and roll, and I'm starting to see the water bead up and moving along the decal until I get to the end, and I've got that half of the decal firm. I'm going to pick up from this side and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to roll, and all I'm doing is I'm trying to get as much of that water out from underneath as I can. Now it will evaporate, it will dry, and I'm not going to worry too much about all the little detailed wrinkles I'm seeing there because they will work themselves out. But again, this is a pretty flat surface here. Now if you do have concerns about any wrinkles underneath there, Microscale also has a microsol. Now microset is to help set the decal. Put that on the surface of the model before you apply the decal. It will help prep the surface of the model in case you have some compound curves or really a tricky area that you want that decal to settle down over. Microsol is a very gentle acid that will help dissolve is too strong a word, but it will help soften the decal. Again, that same brush, I'm going to dip it in here, I'm going to get some of that on there, and I'm just going to brush that on top of it. Now this is totally unnecessary for these decals because this is such a flat, smooth surface here, so I'm just demonstrating how I would do this. And I would just brush it on the decal like this. If there are wrinkles, I would just gently work the wrinkles out with my paintbrush here. If there's a trapped water bubble underneath the decal, I would just gently start to work it out with my brush there. But now once you get this solvent on here, and it smells like vinegar. It's a very, very weak acid is all it is. Once you get it on there though, don't touch the decal again unless it's with a very gentle paintbrush because it is going to soften the decal. And if you go back and if you touch it with something like this, you're probably going to tear it off. And then all you want to do is you just want to let this evaporate. You just want to set it aside and not touch it. Kind of looks like I maybe have a little bubble underneath that one there. Hard to see. Have really good light when you do this. Look at it in a lot of different ways. But then once you've got it, set it aside, don't touch it, just walk away and leave it alone. Okay, I'm going to get those out of the way here because I'm going to go back to this one. This one's going to be a little bit trickier because there are two parts, and I did this intentionally because I don't want to deal with such a big decal trying to get it straight on there. I will tear it, absolutely. So what this is going to end up doing is it's going to overlap a little bit in the center there. But that's okay. Not a lot of that's going to be seen there, and if I don't get it perfect, that's okay too, because it's covered up with a canopy. It's really going to be hard to see that far in. Anyway, I've got this positioned just exactly the way I wanted. The numbers are in the right order. This is actually going to be upside down. I've marked it. I've marked which way is forward here, and I've triple checked against what I've already done with the other decals, and I want this to be 5, 4, 5, 4. Double check, make sure that these numbers are lined up. I've got 5 right here on both of them, 4 on here, both of them, same runway. Alright, same procedure here. This is a little bit larger, of course. I'm going to dip it in there with my fingers. Just let that set there for a few seconds. The water cools off. I mean, that's natural. Keep it as warm as you can. I think it just helps that paper soften up. I think it helps penetrate the paper. That's probably psychological, probably not real. Alright, here we go. And those are going to need to set there for just a moment. I'll get right back with you once those have set here for just a minute, and we'll start to apply them. Okay, we're back, and I think he's ready to go. I've got a lot of water here on my surface. That's important for these decals to be able to move around. In fact, I'm going to just dip him quickly because I feel that paper is a little resistant movement on the back. Double check, is he ready to move on there? He is ready to move. That's great. Going to keep my fingers wet. Going to grab just an edge here, my end frame, just barely. Let me see if I can move this back here a little bit so that you can see a little bit better. Okay, all right. Going to grab an edge there with my tweezers. I don't want to grab the decal itself, just an edge of the decal paper. And I'm going to grip him and pull him just a skosh this direction, and then everything else now is going to happen with my tweezers. I'm going to pull that paper out from behind him here. I'm just going to keep moving my fingers so I don't put too much stress on that paper or the decal rather, as I pull the paper out from underneath it here. Okay, and voila. Okay, that turned out pretty well. I don't have anybody rolling up underneath itself there. That's one thing you got to watch out for, is you got to watch for edges. They're going to roll out from underneath themselves. Okay, all right. Or roll up underneath themselves, rather. Okay, so that's in a pretty good position. I'm not going to fix that down yet because I want to put the other half on here first. And again, just get that paper a little wet. And you know what? I'm going to rotate this around just because I'm right-handed. I work a little bit better from this. Now, just be careful here with that decal part that you've already got down there. Yeah, this is just the way I'm going to need to do it. Okay, alright, I've just got to be careful. Alright, let's just get him started. You know what, I didn't check to make sure that he was ready to move around on there. Yep, okay, he's nice and loose on there. Probably a good idea to just unstick him a little bit there. Alright, now let's see if we can roll him out there without ruining the other decal that's on the other end there. Now the good news here is that that's right in the center of the landing bay. Nobody's ever going to see that. That's the trick, is just not to worry too much about it. Okay, I'm just being really careful to keep that decal paper up in the air and not rolling over that other decal, which is already down. Lots of water on my fingers. I keep dipping them in the water there. Okay, and he's going to go. He's just nice and easy. Whoops, okay. Easy peasy. Alright, now you can see what's going on. In fact, I'm kind of glad that that happened there. You can see how they're fighting each other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very wet brush and I'm just going to try to force the one guy up underneath the other there. And I might need to just slide him down. Yep, okay, there we go. We got it. Okay. See how a wet paintbrush can really help you manipulate these guys where you can't get in there with a fat finger like what I have. Okay, now I'm going to move this guy around. He's right at the edge. I think this guy over here is right at the edge, and now the key is to kind of get them roughly lined up, because you can look down the center of these landing bays here, and you can at least see, are they mostly straight? Are they a little crooked? I'm going to look at it here from the side. Those are mostly straight. I kind of want both of them to come this way just a skosh, but you know what? I'm really just messing with details now. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to grab the canopy that's going to go on top of that real quick and just see if those are centered the way I like them. Yep, that's pretty good. Alright. So, here we go again. And of course this last time is where The memory card died or ran out. I think we're okay this time. I'm going to nudge him. I noticed he was just a little off center there. You know what? It's not going to be perfect, but you and me, we're going to be the only two that know about that. How about that, huh? It's our little secret. Okay. Alright. Just going to roll and roll. I'm just trying to fix them down. I got a fixed point now. Now I'm rolling. I'm not wiping. If you wipe, you tear the decal, or you wrinkle the decal. If you roll, you're just getting a bead of water, and you're just working that bead of water all the way down to the end. There we go, and I'm pretty much out of frame at this point. Whew, and I got some wrinkles there, and that's okay, because I've got my trusty paintbrush here. And this is a soft bristle. You can tell this is a really soft bristle. It's the softest bristle paintbrush that I have. It's also a nice wide one, nice and bushy there. Don't want any stiff bristles. Okay, so that, you know what? And I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to rotate this around, again, just because it's more comfortable for me to work in this direction. And I'm going to do the same thing coming back this way. Just roll it here. And just trying to help it get most of that water out from underneath. It's just going to have to sit here for a while, and that water is just going to have to evaporate, and that's okay. It's going to look okay once that's done. And again, I created a few little wrinkles there. I'm just going to kind of gently work them out with a paintbrush. And you know what? Some of these wrinkles will actually disappear as the water evaporates. Some will not. And that's where you get into the micro sol to help you get some of those guys worked out of there. Now actually, I like the way that looks. This is a nice smooth flat surface. I don't know that I really need to get into using microsol here. There's a little bit of water right underneath there I want to work out on either side there. And that is about how I'm going to leave those for now, and I'm going to let those guys dry for a while. That looks like that's fairly straight, so if you're looking right down the center, that's going to turn out okay. Alright, I'm going to let these dry for a while. I'm going to come back shortly and I'm going to show you the application of some of the white nameplate decals that I also now offer. There's a little trick to those, and I'll walk you through those in just a few minutes. Alright, so now those landing bay decals have been applied and the model itself has actually been assembled, and I've begun painting it. And let me see if I can get it to where you can actually look right inside the landing bays there, and I'll try to get as much light on that as I can. You can see just right inside the landing bays there on either side, I've got those decals in there, and I had masked those off with some post-it notes so it wouldn't lift the decal while I was painting. Same thing on the back side, since it goes all the way through there, and those have turned out looking pretty well. I told you I wanted to show you one more thing, and that is the application of some white decals. So you can see right there the name Talos in white, and it's got a drop shadow on it there, and I'll show you how I do that here in just a moment. I do have the ability to print white decals using white toner. Now it's pretty expensive. The white toner cartridge is plenty expensive, but you know, sometimes there's just no other way to do it. For example, I have some Scout spaceships here that I've been working on, and you can see on the radome there, I know they got some light reflecting off of there, but I want to do some work on the radomes there, and you can see I put a little something up on the nose there as well too, and I'm working on another radome right here. Turn that right upside up. There we go. Okay, and that'll go on yet another Scout as well too. So all that's going to get dull coated, so it's not shiny like that. But these decals have just gone on here within about the last hour. You can see I've got another one just right up here on the yeah, just right up there on the nose of that one then as well too. So sometimes, you know, a white decal is the only way that you can manage to do something, and so I am fortunate that I have the ability to print those white decals. And so, for example, the name here, I want the name to be in white. Now I've been really happy with the with how opaque these white decals are. This is a pretty dark gray fuselage here, even though I've got very harsh light and it's difficult to tell maybe. Let me turn that right side up there. The white really does stand out very well on there, so I'm really happy with it. In fact, that's a black decal that's right behind it there. I'm going to try to get that in as close as it will allow it to focus. And you can see how that white went right on top of the black decal, and it still looks okay. So that I'm really happy with. So you can see here, okay, so I've started on the other side, and I've put down that black base decal to start with there. And next, I put down the white decal. So same process as before. I've actually got the decal sitting right over here. Just going to quickly dip it into the water there. Just a few seconds. I'm going to pull that out, set it aside. And I'm not going to put any decal set on top of that black decal. I put a little bit down underneath the black decal, and I've let that black decal set on there for probably about 5 minutes now. I want it to get good and settled down because I don't want to be moving it around at the same time I'm trying to move around the white decal. And so I'm going to get my finger just a little bit wet there, and I'm going to get just a little bit of water on that, but I want to be careful that I'm not going to end up lifting up that black decal when I'm working on the white decal. And now I'm just going to get that white decal right on top of the black decal. Is he ready to slide? Yeah, he's ready to slide around. Okay, alright. So, now here's the tricky part. I'm going to use the back end of a paintbrush here to slide him around. And I know you're not able maybe to see everything. I wonder if I can pick this up to where you can see this a little bit better. I don't know without dropping it how much I can get that to where you can actually see what I'm doing there. Alright, so I'm going to use the back end of my paintbrush. I'm going to slide that white decal around. But you can see I put it right on top of that black decal, and that's actually not bad there. That might be just about where I want it to be. But you can see that white decal is nice and opaque. I think I can keep that in focus there and show that to you. Try to keep it in frame as well too. You can see that black decal is not showing through there at all. I'm really, really happy with the way that that white is turning out, and that's going to give me a really nice drop shadow detail on that decal. So I'm going to get in close here. Hopefully you're not looking at the top of my head while I'm doing this. Just move him around a skosh. Yeah, actually I kind of like where he is right there. Alright. Gotta stop touching it, because he's where I want him to be, and I'm just going to let him sit there for a moment. I'm going to very gently touch on him with my soft cloth because I don't want to accidentally move him around, but I just want to get some of that excess water off of there. Okay, and I'm just going to leave him alone then in that case. So this has worked out really well. I've got an even darker gray one right here, this Osiris. That is actually a really dark gray. In fact, it's sort of a gunship gray is what it ended up being, trying to get the reflection off of there. You can see how well that white is still standing out on there, so I'm really happy with the way that that's turning out. So I just wanted to show you those white decals real quick. We've done all the landing bay decals. I'm really happy with the way that those have turned out. I still have to assemble the big guys right here, but I've got all of these guys dull coated now, and they're in really good shape. Turned out really well, laid down very well, and of course you can see the ones that I've already got in there, and I just want to show you those white decals real quick as well too. So, drop by DownenScaledReplicas.com, check and see if there are some decals that we have out there now that might work for you. If you're looking for something special, I can do custom work as well too. Just drop me a line using the contact page there on the website, and in the meantime, happy modeling.